Hello, students, and welcome to my first broadcast. I hope you are going to enjoy it. Uh, Obviously, we are looking to start our Year 13 content for the AQA A-Level PE from 2016 specification. This unit is going to be focusing on sport and society, and I'm just going to share with you the specification so you can see what we're going to be covering this year. Okay, hopefully you can see that on your screen. So there are some differences from the Year 12 Sport and Society units. We do still have technology there, but for me personally, I feel that the Year 13 content is a lot more engaging. There's some topics in there which are very interesting, and it's not focusing on the history of sport, but there are some links to some of the work that we covered in Year 12. So we're going to start off and we're going to go through this sequentially. So we're going to be looking at concepts of physical activity and sport during this presentation today, which we're going to be covering what is physical recreation, what is sport, what's physical education, what's school sport, and comparisons and the differences between each one. In future topics, we're going to be looking at elite performers in sport and development of elite performers. So what the UK in particular is doing to prepare our elite athletes for the world stage. In particular, we look at the Olympic Games, and we're looking at talent identification programs and institutes of sport. We'll then be looking at ethics of sport. This is linked a little bit to the Year 12 work where we looked at amateurs and professionals. But we'll look at deviance and give you examples of what forms that may take, which also links to other topics, which will be violence in sport and drugs in sports. Violence in sport, we're looking at violence of the performer themselves and the spectator, and how they are correlated, and also what implications that has on the sport and the individual and the performer. We'll look at drugs in sports, a very big topic area, in my opinion. Over the years, there have been many competitors who have been caught taking drugs and performance-enhancing drugs, that is, to get an unfair advantage. And I'm sure you're already thinking of some examples that have been recent. Lance Armstrong springs to mind straight away. And what drugs they've been taking, why they've been taking them, and what benefits they may receive, not just physically, but also financially as well. But also what damage that does to the sport and the whole process. We'll look at sport and the law, where we're actually going to be looking at some case studies, which are going to be focusing on negligence and what kind of law is implicated for performers themselves, officials, and the duty of care of a coach to keep their performers safe, and also to keep the spectators safe from hooliganism, and also what kind of punishments they may receive. We then look at further development of commercialization on physical activity. So again, we're looking at the golden triangle and the commercialization deals for performers, coaches, officials, audience, and sports, and we link all those together. And finally, we build on what we have covered in the Year 12 about technology, which, as you can see, this is still very similar here. In fact, the same, but we then add to this by discussing some further sports analytics, and also what kind of equipment's been designed and implemented in regards to surfaces and to help the disabled and the elderly take part in sports. Finally, we'll just look at what kind of positive and negative impacts technology has been having on sport, the performer, coaches and audience. And we kind of have already discussed these in our year 12. Okay, to start our lesson today, we're going to be looking at looking at concepts of physical activity and sports. I will just get that up for you. I'll be back in 1 moment. Okay, so obviously you should already have this presentation, so you can follow it on your computer as I talk, and you obviously can go back through this to get more details. You should also have the comparison task, which hopefully I will be able to post in the YouTube link, along with the student notes, which you can add to from the presentation itself in your own time. So let's get started. And if you have any questions, just let me know in the comment box and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Let's make this a little bit bigger for you. Okay, so concepts of physical activity and sport. The objectives are very much linked to the specification, which we have just obviously looked at because that's what we need to learn. So we're going to be looking at the concepts. When I say concepts, what do I mean by that? Concepts of physical activity. What does that mean? And sport. What does that mean? And what does it look like? What is the difference between physical activity and sport? What's the difference between physical recreation and sport? And what does PE? What does that mean? PE in relation to physical recreation and sport, and what does a good physical education program look like, and what it should, how it should be benefiting the people who take part, the students who take part, and society. We're going to explain these concepts in relation to the benefits, and then we will compare and contrast all of these key concepts. We're going to start off with physical activity and sport. So we do take part in physical activity. Everyone takes part in physical activity pretty much. But what are the concepts of physical activity and sport? What does that actually mean? How do they differ? I'm just going to give you a few minutes to have a think about that question. So what are these concepts? What does it mean? What's the difference between them? Have a little think of this. Okay, hopefully you've come up with a few ideas there. Well, the whole idea of it, I suppose you can kind of relate it to why are you taking part? What is this about? Well, probably the first things that came into your mind is, well, we probably want to take part or get involved in physical activity because generally it's got some kind of health benefits, first of all. And if we're talking about health, what is the definition of health? We're talking about the physical, the mental, social well-being of people. So naturally, if we're talking about health, then we're talking about the mental side, psychological benefits to physical activity, social benefits for physical activity. Some of you probably thought about, you probably take part in physical activity to try to improve your skill level, your physical skills, which is generally the most common answer that I receive. And for some of you, you might just enjoy the fun of getting involved in these kind of activities. And some people, of course, do want to win and do like that feeling of winning, which is nothing wrong with that. And that might be one of the reasons why they take part. As performance gets a bit better, If we talk about a continuum here from an amateur going through to a professional elite level, those kind of characteristics, they get different, they get more advanced, and sport itself starts to look a lot different to physical activity. There are similarities, but physical activity and sport is very different, and we're going to explore that during this presentation. Okay, let's start us off. What do all of these images have in common? Have a little think about that one. What do these images have in common? So let's take a little look at this then. So here we've got, looks like someone having a little bike ride through the park, maybe a recreational jogger. Looks like obviously a golfer, probably hitting the course. He's got no caddy with him. Looks very much recreational golf player there. We've got a few people having a little bit of a kick around. We've got someone playing in the swimming pool. Again, people here playing together. We've got a group exercise session here. We've got a beach volleyball session here. And we've just got a group biking session, cycling session here. So kind of these images, I'm trying to represent physical recreation. Physical recreation. So well done if you managed to get that. So physical recreation. What is recreation and what is physical recreation? What are we looking at there? So the idea and the definition behind this is that you are active during your leisure time. You should know by now the definition of leisure time and what that is. And obviously, if you did GCSE PE, you would have had that definition of leisure time is the time available when you choose to do what you want to do. So you've got no other commitments. So you've got no school, you've got no work, you're not eating, you're not sleeping, and you've got time available for you to do what you want to do. So it's that active component of leisure time. So a few examples there. So you could choose to do aerobics, or you could choose to walk the dog in the park, and that would be an active part of leisure time. Or alternatively, you could be passive, and you could maybe just sit on your sofa. You could read a book. You could just lie down on your bed, I suppose, and or you could just be using a computer. Okay, there's lots of different types of leisure, and the active side is what we're looking at for physical recreation. So what does this look like if we think about those images that you've just seen? You probably kind of thought that it's very much just about play and about fun. Looking at some of those, if I can just go back some of those images, a lot of people there, they look like they're having fun. They're getting involved because they want to get involved, probably, and they just, for me, I'm just interpreting that as they just want to get involved in physical activity. It's probably non-serious to a certain degree, or that's why I put less serious, because yes, physical activity can occasionally be serious, but lower down the pyramid where we're talking about this physical recreation side, it's probably not important if you win or lose, and it's probably not going to be having a high level of skill as compared to the elite sports. Most participation is probably done intrinsically, probably due to health benefits rather than to rewards like money or trophies. And the thought that participation is more important than the winning obviously links to the amateur ideal that we have already covered in year 12. Generally, these are performed voluntary. They all involve that physical element, and usually there's a choice of those activities, and we can also think about like the concept of physical recreation. Yes, it can be sport, as in to a certain degree, as in you can play by certain rules, but those rules are probably flexible. You can go down to the local tennis courts in the park, and you can find a partner. Maybe that's your friend or your sibling, and you can decide on the rules that you want to play, because tennis is not an easy game, especially at the low end of the skill continuum. So you could probably say, okay, we can serve as long as it goes into the other court. It doesn't have to go into the service box, or can have 3 serves, or can serve underarm, or we could use the full doubles court rather than singles court, or we could just score 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rather than using the official tennis scoring rules. Or you could just play 2, 3 games rather than a full six-game set. So those rules are usually flexible and agreed between the participants who are taking part, and it's generally self-officiated. You rarely see at an amateur level and physical recreation level where it is officiated by paid officials. What benefits does this bring then to the individual? Because physical recreation does have a lot of benefits. The first ones you're probably thinking about is the physical skills. Yes, it improves those physical skills that you have. It's going to increase the health and fitness level, especially when you're talking about health and fitness. Just think about the components of fitness. So is it going to improve speed, strength, stamina, flexibility, reaction time? Yes, it is. Of course it is. You're probably going to increase self-confidence and self-esteem. There's lots of research to show that physical recreation does that. It can relieve stress, and again, there's a lot of research which have pointed to the fact that taking part in physical activity can relieve a lot of stress, which is therefore why you should not just completely cut out physical activity and recreation during your study times, because you're probably under a lot of stress at that time, and it could be a very beneficial tool for you guys to relieve a bit of that stress and stay focused. Obviously, increasing participation, it's going to increase the numbers taking part in the country, and there are obvious socialization opportunities to meet new people, to make new friends, which is obviously going to improve your healthy lifestyle. I've got here that just have a few minutes to think about an acronym which you could potentially use to link all of these together so you do not forget them. So you don't just have to take the first letter. You can take the first letter of the actual components here. I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. Obviously, if you are watching this on catch up, then you can take a second to pause the video whilst you come up with that. What benefits does physical recreation have for the society then? So that if they were for the individual, improving health, improving your skill level, improving socialization, participation, what about society? What kind of benefits does it have to society in general? Have a think about that question. Hopefully you can start to think about a couple of things which you could add to this. Some of you may have thought it's going to lead to a healthier society in general, which you are completely true to be saying that. So generally, there's going to be more healthy people physically, socially, mentally, and therefore you're going to have less people with diseases, maybe with physical problems, with potentially obesity-related problems, and hopefully that would reduce the stress and pressure on the National Health Service in the UK. Linked to that, obviously, we just mentioned the obesity rates. We're also going to have an increase in community cohesion. So an interaction between communities, and sport has been very beneficial and at the forefront of kind of increasing community communication and the integration of different kind of cultures and races, because it is a tool which can bring people together from around the world. Just look at the Olympic Games, for example, about how many nations actually take part in the games and trying to compete against each other, and the benefits, of course, that has. Studies have shown that taking part in physical recreation will reduce crime rates. That's an interesting one. And you're thinking, how could that be possible? Well, the thought process is of a few things here. Number one, if you're taking part in sport, you not have time to go commit a crime. Number two, if you're taking part in sport in your community, then you are more likely to respect your community and therefore look after it better. And number three, I suppose if you're playing in the community against different cultures and races, then you're going to know a lot more people, and therefore you're less likely to be committing crimes against those people themselves. It does boost the economy and the employment rates. The sports industry and sector is worth billions of pounds across the world. Employment, if you think about where they're going to get employed, well, number one, leisure centres, community centres as well, which are government run and council run, and people who are taking part in sports have to buy equipment. So you think about how much equipment costs, and it's not so cheap these days. If you want the top grades, top graded versions of your football boots or your golf clubs or your tennis rackets. So it is going to cost a lot of money, but it's going to put a lot of money into society. And finally, it widens the participation base again. So more people are taking part in sport, and more people taking part in sport. When we look at our next section, after concepts of physical activity and sport, we will be able to see how and why more people taking part in sport links to the elite level and success on the world and international stage. Okay, moving on. What do all of these images have in common? Okay, hopefully you started to think about, looking at these images, a lot different to the other one. All of these looking like some kind of sport, competitive sport. That's what we're looking for. Even at the younger age here, this is still competitive sport. You've got people who are in standardized kits, playing by certain rules, and we'll explore this concept of sport next. So what are these characteristics of sport? What do you think? How will they differ from physical recreation? Hopefully you're starting to think about a few of these. Number one, it's competitive. That's pretty obvious that sport is competitive at the elite level and the top end. It doesn't even have to be at the top end. When you start to get into even at the lower end, when you start to get officials and you've got teams and you are representing teams, even at the lower end, the amateur level, you still get a competitive experience. Participants are going to be following highly structured rules and strict rules. Highly structured and strict rules, if you can remember, one of the characteristics of sport from the AS program, especially when you're talking about rationalization of sport, highly structured and strict rules. You think about your real tennis It's probably going to be a high win ethic from the participants. They want to win. Winning is probably more important than taking part at this level. That's to a certain degree for certain people, I suppose. It's serious. People are serious about this sport. They don't give time out of their program to go up and just to lose, and they take it serious. So they might be training a bit more. They might have tactic strategies, coaches, managers. You're going to have a higher level of skill and effort. Those are the tactics and strategies we've talked about. There are extrinsic rewards offered to the winners. So it's pretty much all level. If you win the league or you win a tournament, you're going to get rewarded by getting a trophy. For further up the chain and the ladder, you're going to get financial rewards as well. There'll be set times and boundaries. So official times when starting and the boundaries of the pitch. There's going to be a high commitment level from participants. There's going to be a national governing body who are overseeing and enforcing the rules. Again, see if you can make an acronym of these characteristics of sport. So the benefits of sport to the individual, you think about the benefits of physical recreation, all of those are included in sport. You get all of those benefits, but you get some bonus benefits as well. So there's more of an argument that sport itself develops morals and etiquettes and sportsmanship and positive attitudes. Obviously, some people can argue against that with certain things that have happened over the years. But generally, there is an argument for the development of morals, etiquette, sportsmanship, and attitudes. It's going to increase leadership development, increase social development, and also an appreciation for skill itself at the top end. So you all of a sudden you start to get pundits breaking down these skills and I suppose showing those skilled performances to the rest of the population. Similar to the society, you're going to get the same benefits as physical recreation, but you're going to get now an increased number of role models within society. Generally, you're going to get an increased mood from society. And think about when your country or your team is doing well on the world stage. There's usually a buzz around the city or buzz around the country itself when they are performing well. And the skill level itself would also increase, meaning that it'd be more of a spectacle for the spectators, increasing the entertainment value. Okay. Moving on to this. What does this look like to you? Well, hopefully you can all agree and see from there that this is trying to represent physical education in schools. So what is physical education in schools then? Well, number one, it is compulsory. It's compulsory in school throughout school from ages 4 to 16. It's taught at educational establishments, so all schools, and delivered in the form of formal lessons, usually practical lessons. There's also a set national curriculum in England, which the schools should follow. It's led by qualified teachers who have teaching degrees, and it is highly structured and they follow planned lessons. So these are the characteristics of physical education. So the question is, obviously it's included, it's compulsory, but why? What are the benefits to society, to the person taking part and getting involved in physical education? What are the benefits? Okay, hopefully you can start to think about some of these reasons. Again, a lot of people start to think about benefits and links between physical recreation and physical education, sport and physical education, because there are similarities between all of these concepts. There's similarities and the differences, and that's what we need to get out of this process. Most people come up with skills as number one, improving the skills, but there's lots more to physical education and lots more that it can add. Some of these things can be measurable, some are not measurable, but they're generally accepted within society. So if we look at the physical side first, the hope is from most physical educators, probably all of them, is that they want to help the students to take part in healthy and active lifestyles. They want to get them involved. By getting students involved and making sure they're not sedentary, hopefully we're going to give a good form of body management and to reduce the obesity levels within the country. Hopefully, again, we're going to develop a positive attitude towards physical activity. But again, that's very subjective, because there are many students who do not like physical education and are put off physical education in school. But the main aim, I suppose, for these physical educators, for all physical educators, try to get as many people involved and getting that positive attitude. So when they leave school, they're prepared for lifelong participation in sports. We're going to hopefully improve skill level of certain skills. So you might just think about, take a sport, for example, basketball, to improve the layup, to improve the set shot. So yes, physical education, we're going to be improving skill level, but we're also going to be looking at solving problems. And these are kind of cross skills which you can use, transferable skills, you can use different aspects of life. So when you're trying to work out the tactical developments in a particular sport or topic, or trying to create a problem that's presented to you within the PE curriculum, this has been done so that you can try to develop your problem solving skills that can be used in other aspects of life. Values are very important as well. Part of the physical education justification is that we're trying to develop, or hopefully you're trying to develop, certain values such as fairness and respect, as well as fair play, morals, ethics, following rules, showing sportsmanship, showing empathy for other people and the opposition. Hopefully all of these kind of values are going to improve people's social skills as well, and personal skills, so they can develop and they can be more approachable. Hopefully a good quality physical education curriculum will be able to develop creativity, and leadership and communication are also in there as well. So all of these kind of values and characteristics of physical education, although they can't be directly measured, most of them, these are the kind of justification for putting physical education into the curriculum and making it compulsory, because there are so many benefits to physical education. And of course, you're sitting here undertaking an A-level examination. So in the modern sports world, it does provide a pathway for career progression and provide you with qualifications which you can take on to the further level. Okay, what is this? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. So a few of you may have done certain activities like this before. So we're looking at outdoor education. What is it? And some of you may have done this within your PE curriculum in certain years, or you may have gone on residentials and done certain kinds of these problem-solving activities. I know in my curriculum, we definitely present these at the start of the year to develop team spirit and cohesion. But this kind of concept of physical education, outdoor education under the physical education umbrella, is taken on by different schools in different manners because it depends on your locality. Obviously, if you're down here next to the coast, nice cliffs to climb, yes, you can have that. If you're close to water, you can do some kind of controlled risk activities in these environments. But if you haven't and you only got a playground, then you have to be a bit more creative and develop games to bring out these problem solving and challenging skills. So outdoor education generally is an activity seen as challenging in nature. Now, the concept of challenging is obviously debatable, but they're trying to use natural environments to bring out this challenge under controlled risk. So generally in outdoor education program, you may be doing this in like mountains, lakes and countrysides. And you may be seeing activities such as rock climbing, windsurfing, kayaking. However, if you don't have these kind of environments, then you have to be creative in bringing this to the playground itself. So there's orienteering courses that can be set up within schools. There's kind of team games and team challenges, which kind of brings people together and helps them to communicate and identify problems and build on these kind of skills here of trust and communication. The whole idea of this concept of outdoor education is to further increase self-esteem and confidence within the PE curriculum. It brings about these cognitive skills and helps you make decisions and helps to develop and identify leaders and helps people to work in a team, or especially a good outdoor education program does. So PE can be seen is, if you look at this Venn diagram, as the product of three distinct areas. We've got education, where you're learning skills. You've got sport, which is competitive, highly structured. And you've got recreation, which is a bit more informal and getting people involved. So the model of PE itself will take aspects of these three concepts and merge them all together. So different units may be focused on different topic areas. And all of them, they have similarities. As you can see, there is overlap. There's overlap between all three of them, but there are also differences. So finally, school sports. If we look at school sport itself, similar to sport as a concept, it's competitive, but related to sport in schools, when is this done? It's generally not done in PE lessons themselves. They're usually done in extracurricular time, so before school, lunch times, after school, times when you don't have timetabled lessons. The idea is you're going to increase skill level. Now, school sport may not be for everyone. It may not be for everyone, but we're trying to reach out to as many people as possible to get them involved. Hopefully, most schools have got a sport for all approach, which gives competitive experiences to everyone. And the idea is that you're going to increase the skill level by giving this competitive competition against maybe other schools or internal competitions as well. It's going to lead to an increased physicality as compared to physical education lessons, further challenges because you need to work out tactics and strategies, and further developing these decision-making and cognitive skills, which we've kind of just discussed in the outdoor education. There's a few initiatives, such as the school sports partnerships and school games. Please do take a look at these. I'm going to see if I can try to get these up on your screen so we can view.
Our aim is to empower young people through the medium of sport to be the best they can. We work along a number of structures. There are some organisations that provide formal qualifications, Sports Leaders UK, but we also believe in empowering every level of child to become a leader so that they can be the best they can. And we try to find as many different settings as possible for them to express those leadership skills.
I'm one of two for the partnership. I was chosen for my leadership. It's kind of to promote sport and to promote the Olympics and the values and try and get more people into sport and leading.
In my secondary school that I work at, we have a Year 7 and 8 Leadership Academy where it's very enthusiastic Year 7 and Year 8 students who are very interested in being leaders. They may have come up from their primary school with already a young leader qualification, or they could just be interested in being part of it at Harroway. And it's a very committed group that come Fridays after school every week. They all come really regularly, and we're working towards running multi-skills festivals. They help run events in school, and they're just a really enthusiastic group.
Well, we're highly active in the community. We get as many of our young leaders as possible to volunteer in local settings. Young people run activities in the school for other young people, so in the school setting. And leaders from our partnership have been involved in national conferences and events.
I help organise conferences and do presentations and speak to children, as well as lead myself in clubs and conferences and events.
Basically, they come back incredibly enthused and normally even more motivated to utilise the skills that they've learnt and utilised at the conference itself.
I've been to the two that the school hold, the Top Link conferences. I've helped run the Silver Ambassador Conference, which was also held here, as well as I went to Telford for the school sports college conference.
But they come because they really have got a high level of leadership. They're really keen on leading, and it gives them such a huge sense of confidence. They so enjoy running the festivals for younger children, and they just get such a buzz out of doing it.
This year there's going to be a festival in our school, and I'm hoping to help our teachers with it and join in and teach other kids the sports that we've learnt today.
Okay, wheelchair basketball is an adapted form of basketball for people with mobility issues. And in the past, we've found that you put an able-bodied person in a chair, they compete and they are able to perform probably to a lesser degree than someone who has played in a wheelchair. So it's a great leveller and it's completely inclusive. Polybat's an activity that involves people with mobility issues again, or able-bodied people taking away their mobility and having them undertake a game where they strike a ball back and forward to each other and attempt to get the ball past the barriers of the other team.
Okay, ready? We'll be on
the table cricket game is a game that just involves young people who love cricket, who love the idea of competing in a simple game, but who have major mobility issues. So they're able to play stood around the table and also make tactical decisions regarding placing of fielders and where they bowl to.
Careful. This year there's going to be a festival in our school, and I'm hoping to help our teachers with it and join in and teach other kids the sports that we've learnt today.
I think that it's given us an experience that we can tell other people about and get other people excited and get them wanting to get more involved in leadership and sport.
What have you got out of it? You enjoyed doing it?
I've loved doing it, yeah. I don't want to leave.
Okay, so that was an example of initiative from the government. That was School Sports Partnerships, and it's looking at trying to develop and increase the opportunities to take part in sport by schools working with each other, especially secondary schools working with primary schools in the community to try to increase physical education opportunities for not just physical education, but sports opportunities, competitive sports opportunities to students, both able-bodied and disabled-bodied. And I'm going to link back to our presentation. Okay. So that, like I say, that was one initiative. Another initiative that from the government is school games. Now, if you can imagine like a mini Olympics for the elite level of school children, and that's the kind of concept of school games. I have got a little clip for you, which I'll show you now. Okay, so that was school sports. I'll get you back to our presentation. So just to clarify, the school sports programme was an initiative from the government, but it's also backed by UK sport as well. And it's just a celebration of achievements, but it's looking at the top end of the best athletes. So we're talking about county level through to national level students. And you think about the benefits of something like the school games concept for talent identification, and that will link us very nicely onto elite sport in our next presentation. Finally, from me, before I leave, I've got 2 tasks for you. Number one, well, there's more than one. Number one, you need to make the comparisons between these different concepts now. So physical recreation, sports, physical education. What are the differences? What are the similarities? Okay, that's task number one. Number two, there are some questions on this presentation for you to have a quick look over, or some kind of questions you may experience in your exam. Thirdly, you can access this link to answer some more questions, some multiple choice questions via Kahoot. And I know it's probably not great playing on your own, but you can still access that, and I suppose you're guaranteed to win. And finally, have a look at these keyword definitions and try to ingrain them into your head, because these are going to be easy marks for the short answer questions. And obviously you can start your long answer questions by showing your examiner how much you already know. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation, and please do leave comments and like the video, and I will be seeing you very shortly, hopefully, and look out for presentation number 2. Have a great day ahead. Enjoy.